Hi people, so 2nd of November, a few days since I made a video. I've been busy and also in order to make a video I need to clear space on the laptop. But anyway, big political news today, the Tories have a new leader and the leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition, Kemi Badenoch. Not overly surprising, in the last few days I think she's been heading the polls for the expected winner. Robert Jenrick had a good start in this campaign, but obviously it didn't work out for him in the end. And the votes were roughly 53,000 for Badenoch and 41,000 for Jenrick. A comfortable win for her, but apparently less than what Rishi Sunak got when he lost to Liz Truss. So the Tories clearly have a long way to climb back. Um, it would be remiss of me not to point out the historic ceiling being broken here. Kemi Badenoch is now the first black woman to lead a major British political party. Technically, she's not the first black Briton because Vaughan Gething led Welsh Labour for a brief while. But she is the first black woman to lead a British political party, and the fact that she's a Tory just reiterates how far that party has come. There would have been a point where that was unthinkable, but um, I'll give the Tories a due. They really, really have made strides in that direction. I think a lot of that has to come down to the David Cameron era. The Tories have had now four women leaders and two ethnic minority leaders, not to mention numerous cabinet postings filled by ethnic minority people. So it is progress. I'm not one for identity politics, but that is, it's a good thing. It's a thing also about the United Kingdom more broadly because we are way ahead of other European countries in this regard. Um, and it's almost not newsworthy in itself, which is a good thing because it shows that it's normalized. It's it's significant, but it's not the central focus here. So, that's I think it's a good thing. Um, But Kemi Badenoch's made a name for herself by being a sort of culture warrior and being anti-woke and so on. So I think it would be a mistake if the Tories focus too much on it. She's a black woman, because then they would just be doing the same thing that they've always accused the left of doing. So even though they actually do have a better record in this regard, that shouldn't be. If Badenoch's a strong leader, she's a strong leader. If she's not, she's not. It won't be anything to do with the fact she's black. That's the point. Now, what do we know about her? She's on the right of the party. It's probably fair to say she's a Thatcherite. Um, she's going to have a balancing act of getting Reform voters and Liberal Democrat voters because there's been a lot said about Reform's rise, but it shouldn't be forgotten the Liberal Democrats got 72 seats in the election, their biggest result ever. So there was clearly a move to the left as well in this past general election. She's going to have a balancing act of attracting support from both sides. Clearly, there's this kind of big rift right now between the Tories and Reform, and I can't see any electoral pact happening. I think there's too much bad blood between Farage and the Tories for that. I just don't see it happening. Um, but clearly she's going to try and get Reform voters back into the Tories. That makes sense. If I were the Conservative leader, I would be doing that. But she can't totally disregard the left either, because whatever heavy criticism Labour is getting right now, they did win a very comfortable victory in July. A landslide. Whatever way you gloss it over, it was a landslide. So Badenoch has to consider the reasons why Labour won, and it isn't good enough to, it's not as simple as the Tories were unpopular. Clearly, Starmer, whatever could be said about him right now, he won the general election. So I think I was looking at her speech. It wasn't overly long. She did, I'm pleased to say, we need to look honestly at our mistakes. But during the leadership campaign, she mentioned Partygate and she said we have to move on from that. And she thought it was unfair that Boris was blamed. Um, I don't like that because I think that the Tories still are in denial about this. They are still in denial that Partygate. I'm not suggesting it was the only thing. There was a lot of factors. It was a big one, and I'm sick of Tories downplaying that. And let me tell you why. In the height of the pandemic, which is, it's largely over now, but the fact of the matter is, it was perceived as one rule for them and another rule for everyone else, and that infuriated the public. I was infuriated by that because I recall there was a student who got a £20,000 fine because he had an illegal party. Boris Johnson does it, and his cronies do it, and it's we shouldn't pick on Boris. It's he made mistakes. It's just I want Badenoch as leader to show introspection and, frankly, humility. I'm not talking about her personally. I mean, as leader of the Conservative Party, the Tories have to show humility. They suffered a massive loss this July, and they have to look at that and not make excuses. They have to honestly say, okay, the public punished us. Why did they punish us? One of the commentators was saying it's important not to polarize people in doing this. Presumably, that means people like Boris Johnson and others, because inevitably there'll be internal criticism. Well, they have to do that. They have to criticize because if the Tories don't have serious introspection, how can they be taken seriously as a government in waiting? They have to do that first. And I think one reason Badenoch won is because she did focus on introspection more than Jenrick did. Jenrick was focusing on policy, Badenoch was focusing on introspection. Policy is important, but I think you need to do that first and then focus on policy. Now, in a democracy, a strong opposition, or an effective opposition rather, is very, very important. From that point of view, as someone who's never voted Tory, who's not a member of the Tory party, who's been very vocal about some things the Tories have done, I actually want Badenoch to be an effective opposition leader. Because this government, it's only been in power for just over 100 days and they've already angered a lot of people. So, you know, Badenoch has to hold Starmer to account, and that's her job. That's what she has to do, whilst also offering a positive vision for her own party to the public. The next general election in 2028 or 2029. Um, it's no easy task. She has a really daunting task ahead of her, rebuilding a party that's been hammered, historically hammered in the general election. But there are some things I like about Badenoch. Like I mentioned before, I like that she's anti-woke now. Therefore, accuse her of being a culture warrior. But I take, for example, this feud she had with David Tennant. Um, Tennant had that obnoxious thing saying, "Oh, she should just go and disappear somewhere." But Kemi Badenoch is making very valid concerns about what many women think regarding militant trans orthodoxy. The thing is, though, to be an effective party leader, you do have to go beyond being just anti-woke. I think she's very smart. I think that she will do that, but she has to. I mean, one reason I've went off GB News, there's many reasons, but one reason I went off them is the whole thing is just anti-woke, anti-woke, anti-woke. That's all they really stand for, not much else. And I think their patriotism is dubious. Actually, it's very in your face, but um, I honestly think GB News is a Reform Party mouthpiece. I've really got little time for it, even though I've agreed with some of their positions. I just think I was absolutely disgusted over their attitude on the riots. Um, Kemi Badenoch actually got criticised during that time because she was on holiday. So, but yeah, going forward, who did Starmer fear more, Jenrick or Badenoch? Well, they're both on the right. I think in a sense we're going to see politics as normal. You know, um, a Labour leader who many regard as on the left, though some would say is on the right, and a right wing Tory leader. It's going to be politics as normal in a sense. Um, but there will be things that Labour will do that is wrong, and that's where Badenoch has to hold them to account. That will be her job as opposition leader. Um, and we'll see what happens in Parliament. But the Tories would be wrong if they sort of attack Starmer in the sense of, you know, playing identity politics, kind of reverse identity politics, like, oh, he's only criticizing her because she's a woman or something like that. I think that would be really foolish of the Tories to do that. They have to, I like the fact that Badenoch hasn't done that, so they should go along with her approach and not play that sort of thing up too much. Um, there's not really much else to say uh, because the thing is, this was an internal contest, right? So the vast majority of people in this country had no say in it. And I haven't made a video on it up to now because I was interested. I've been following what's been happening over the pond, of course, but I've been interested. But I kind of thought, well, okay, I could talk about the individual candidates here, but really, the only thing that matters is who wins and what direction they're going to go in. So Kimmy Badenoch has a very daunting task ahead of her, but she's won comfortably. Many Tories will obviously wish her well. She made a very gracious speech. There was no animosity with her rival. I think they had a spirited but very civil contest, her and Jenrick. That's good. Um, yeah, so we'll see how it goes. But, I would say to Tory members out there, um, if you want to see your party back in power, you need to have introspection, and it isn't just about winning reform voters. It's about winning people like me who are centre ground and who might consider voting Tory. Might. The things I don't like. I don't like the way the Tories treated welfare claimants. I didn't like the constant sort of punitive sanction culture. Although Labour is no better, quite frankly, in that regard. There's things I liked about the Tories. I like Tory foreign policy actually. I think most Tory prime ministers got that right. They stood, notwithstanding Brexit, standing up to Russia. That's something very important, and I think I'd like to see a united front with Badenoch and Starmer on that issue, and I think there will be. I see no reason why there won't be. Um, so yeah. Um, do I think she'll be the next prime minister? Probably not, because the history of this country is that parties tend to stay in power for a generation. Right now, Labour has angered a lot of people, but come the next general election, people may have moved on to other issues. So the early release of prisoners, the winter fuel payments, Rachel Reeves' highly controversial budget, all those things, by the next general election, there may be other issues going on. A lot can happen in a parliamentary term. And history shows us that, I mean, what if we had 18 years of the Tories from Thatcher to Major. We had 13 years of Labour, um, Blair and Brown, and then 14 years of the Tories from Cameron to Sunak. So it's unlikely that Starmer's government will be out after just one parliament. I don't think that will happen. Starmer might. There might be an internal leadership contest, but I predict he'll have about 5 years, 5, 6 years as leader, as prime minister, and then there'll be some internal issue, and Labour get a new prime minister, something like that. Um, just show you the analysis of this in the background, and then I will wrap this up. That's all bald guy is Henry Hill commentator. So, Kemi Badenoch, the new leader of His Majesty's opposition.